Ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, with the introduction of the Companies Bill in the Parliament and with its new provisions on corporate social responsibility, there is a big paradigm shift. The CSR has moved from myth to reality. This shift has been possible due to the initiatives undertaken by the government, financial institutions, NGOs, corporates, and other stakeholders. With the new game change, the companies definitely need to reconsider their CSR strategy. The intention of the government and purpose of the bill is definitely not to make a rigid structure which will constrain the creativity and imagination of the corporates. In fact, it would provide greater flexibility to business and industry for straightening and conducting their CSR initiatives. It would, in fact, actually enhance the efforts, provide an even broader platform, and re-energize these efforts. Our CSR agenda should be ours, and what we do in CSR should have a strong Indian orientation. Hence, seeing today's attendance, we can easily say that an interesting number of companies are definitely interested to make their business operations sustainable and struggling to establish clear processes that would help them set goals, measures, monitor, and report CSR. So, ladies and gentlemen, today's conference has been organized with the objectives of demystifying and facilitating various organizations to understand the requirements for integrating CSR with their core business operations. Without taking much time, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to the dignitaries on the dais. We are indeed very honored and privileged to have with us today Padma Bhushan Srimati Rajshri Birla, Chairperson, FICCI, Aditya Birla Center for Excellence. Can we have a huge round of applause to welcome her? Mrs. Birla is currently on the board of all major Aditya Birla Group companies, as well as chairperson of the Aditya Birla Center for Community Initiatives and Rural Development, the body responsible for development projects and social welfare work across the 30 companies. She also stewards the Aditya Birla Scholarships, a chairperson of the advisory board of the University of Kanchipuram, member of the advisory board for the Researcher Society for the Care, Treatment and Training of Children in Need of Special Care, and a trustee of Population First India and the BAIF Development Research Foundation in Pune. Welcome, ma'am, and we are indeed grateful to you to have taken time out of your busy schedule to grace this occasion today. We also have with us Mr. Tony Tenisilla, Global Leader and Business Development Executive, IBM USA. Tony has come all the way from USA to be with us. Mr. Tenisilla currently leads IBM Global Customer Facing Organization for advising C-suite executives on the role of LGBT, diversity, and human capital as strategic business drivers to foster innovation and stimulate business growth. Mr. Tenisilla has been recognized by both multinational corporations and emerging enterprises as a thought leader in the areas of diversity strategy, corporate community partnerships, social media, collaborative environments, workforce transformation, and innovation strategy. A very warm welcome, sir. We also welcome Dr. Huzaifi Koraikiwala, Executive Director, Wockhardt. Dr. Koraikiwala founded Wockhardt in 1967 and has gone on to build a multinational enterprise active in the field of pharmaceuticals, biotechnologies, hospitals, and created one of the India's leading healthcare business. He is the former president of FICCI, currently chairman for the Board of Governors at the Center for Organization Development in Hyderabad, and a member of the World Economic Forum. Welcome, sir. Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee needs no introduction. Currently, the Director General and CEO of the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, Dr. Chatterjee is widely acclaimed management practitioner, theorist, and teacher. He has written and lectured over many years on issues of social and sustainable development, corporate responsibility, and human resources. Previously to IICA, as Secretary to Government of India in the Department of Public Enterprises, he prepared and wrote the first comprehensive guidelines on CSR for the public sector. In the process, he was able to make CSR a part of the yearly assessment of public sector enterprises. Shortly after his pioneering effort, Dr. Chatterjee put together a dedicated task force and prepared the first comprehensive guidelines on sustainable development for this sector. He has since then spoken and lectured widely on both these subjects at many national and international fora. Today, as DG and CEO of IICA, Dr. Chatterjee is helping to shape the contours of the subject corporate affairs and preparing strategies for capacity building, knowledge dissemination, and quality research. A very warm welcome to you, sir. I also welcome Mr. D.K. Shenoy, President, Samabhavna Society. Samabhavna Society is an ICO 9001-2008 registered non-profit community-based organization adhering to mental and social wellness of individuals irrespective of their gender, age, and sexuality. The organization is registered with the Charity Commissioner's Office in Mumbai, India, along with project offices in Pune and Mathura. The core team of the organization consists of like-minded people from different walks of life connected with a determination to achieve the motto, happiness for all, and the vision, dignity in life. A very warm welcome, Mr. Shenoy. And I also welcome all of you, ladies and gentlemen, each one of you to have come here all the way and making this conference a huge success. May I now invite Mr. Shenoy to deliver opening remarks, please.
Namaskar, and a very happy morning to all of you. Respected Padma Bhushan Srimati Rajshri Birla, Chairperson FICCI, Aditya Birla Center for CSR Excellence, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, Director General and CSO IICA, Mr. Tony Tenisila, Global Leader in Business Development IBM USA, and Dr. Huzefa Khorakiwala, Executive Director WOCHART, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome the much needed initiative of the Global Conference on CSR taken by Samabhavna Society in partnership with Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India, in collaboration with FICCI, Aditya Birla Center for CSR Excellence, to bridge the gap between the corporates and civil society so as to put in place a system for concrete projectivization coordination. I quote a few words from the famous phrase of the English poet John Donne: "No man is an island, entire of itself. Each part is a piece of the continent, a part of the main." The essence of this poetry conveys only one message: we have no option but to coexist and cooperate. None of us can thrive in isolation. This then should be the spirit behind today's global conference on CSR. The prosperity and improvements in standards of living of a limited section of society can only be viewed as unequal by the large masses living on the fringes. This unequal development is not a result of action by any one section of society, but it is rather a daunting task to ensure percolation of fruits of economic development to reach the most needy in a vast and diverse developing nation of 1 billion people. But unfortunately, this skewed economic development pattern is much more highlighted now than ever before in history due to the speed and reach of today's fast communication and media networks. This is a good thing. The free and democratic media institution is acting dually, both in terms of increasing consumerism and also increasing the hopes and aspirations of a young India. This pumped-up aspiration has to be met with a faster pace of development, and the challenge lies here for the government. The development pace has to be sustainable both ecologically and humanly. The government is already trying its best by launching various social development schemes to balance this inequality, but its resources are inadequate. There are many viewpoints on various models of development to make it all encompassing and equal, but the bottom line is at least to make available basic necessities like food, clean water, sanitation, education, affordable health care and housing to all, and there seems to be a complete agreement here. All have realized that prosperity can come through development of all strata of society. For too long, we have been dependent on development funds received through multilateral exchanges with the Western developed world, but their viewpoint on India is fast changing and they expect India to use its newfound prosperity to take care of India's developmental anomalies. This is creating a huge void in the social funding space, and the corporates need to meet this challenge. The government is looking forward to the corporates to share the burden in partnership with the ground knowledge of the NGOs. There are already many success stories of collaborative efforts by the government, corporates, and NGOs in this direction, and these success stories need to be shared on a common platform along with sharing of resources for a better impact. The Global Conference of CSR precisely aims in providing this platform for corporates, government, and the NGOs. The conference itself is a true reflection of this collaboration in that IICA, government body, Samabhavana Society, a small NGO, and corporates like Aditya Birla Center of CSR Excellence, along with presenting sponsor IBM, associate sponsor HDFC Life and Tata Community Initiatives, have come together in the spirit of the above mission and should be an example for many other long-term collaborations on ground through various developmental projects. This collaboration has really empowered a very small NGO like ours, working on difficult issues like sexual exploitation of male child, child protection, sexual diversity, gender equality, and for us, this collaboration truly reflects the will of the corporates to share the social development space. I conclude by congratulating this collaboration and hope that the conference will pave the way for an equitable development model for India, and let us, in the true sense, make India a developed nation where our forefathers believed that the fit will anyway survive, but it is our moral duty to ensure that the weakest and the marginalized get the best opportunity and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shenoy. And I'm sure the need of the time is to collaborate the efforts of corporate, government, and NGOs. May I now welcome Mr. Tony Tenisila, Global Leader and Business Development Executive, to deliver his address, please.
Thank you. Namaskar. Good morning to all. I want to thank my esteemed dignitaries who are joining me here in front. It is a pleasure to be here in Mumbai in your beautiful country. I would like to first just thank all of you for attending today's conference. This is a momentous occasion for us because corporate social responsibility has become a universal concept. At IBM, we consider corporate social responsibility to be multifunctional, multicultural, and all aspects. And our commitment is to address the needs and wants of our employees, of our customers, partners, suppliers. In essence, when we look at corporate social responsibility and the definition of CSR around the world, it's about creating global citizenship. It's about how do we support our employees in the corporate sector to be good global corporate citizens that have respect for the environment, respect for culture, respect for individuality, respect for differences, respect for language. And at IBM, over the past 100 years, we've strived to create a welcoming and all-inclusive environment from which every one of our employees feel that they're welcomed, all-inclusive, that they feel they're welcomed, and their ideas are cherished, and they're able to be respected. Our goal at IBM is also to work with our NGO community in India in order to create a culture from which we're able to implement change. We're able to institute programs and policies that are going to impact our societies. We're also very committed to the environment, very committed to working on developing communities, community development, housing development. Our campaign on smarter cities is very much integral to that objective. So with that, I welcome all of you to the conference. I'm very much looking forward to working with all of you on addressing CSR in India moving forward. You have our commitment, and I am welcomed, and I welcome my team members here from IBM India to host this event. And I thank you. Enjoy the conference.
Thank you, Mr. Tenisila. I'm sure these kind of corporates are today, again, the need of the time is to have more and more these kind of corporate who would support the good initiatives. May I now welcome Dr. Huzaifa Khorakiwala, Executive Director, Wockhardt, to give his address, please.
Good morning, respected members on the dais and dear audience. It's my pleasure to be here at this CSR conference to share a few thoughts on the CSR. I thank the organizers of this conference, the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs and the IBM for hosting this conference. And I think more such events with CSR becoming such an important concept now, we need an Indian Institute of CSR now, maybe under the Institute of Corporate Affairs. Indian Institute of CSR to take forward all the thoughts which are exchanged on CSR. We need a forum where the CSR heads of different organizations, they come together, meet and discuss the different issues relating to the CSR. A corporate has many stakeholders. We have the employees, we have the customers, suppliers, then we have the investors, we have the government, and we also have the society. So the CSR deals with how you take care of the society and what is your responsibility to the society. So at present, in the company's bill, it has been mentioned 2% of the profit. So what I feel is, I think 2% of profit is too little to be given to the society. The reason for that is, I think it should be 10% of the profit, because the reason for that is, in a company there are different departments. You have some marketing department, this department. And when you want to build a competency for a department, you require a critical size and a critical mass. If your department is going to be so small, I know if it's a Birla Institute, 2% of profit will be very large. But in many places, the 2% of profit can be a very small thing. And then how do you build a competence to deliver the social performance when you have a budget of only 2 crores and you can't build a competence to deliver it? So it should be 10% of profit. This is what I think. And also, one of the other issues of CSR is what we call sustainability. As we are aware that a corporate is prone to the business cycle. The company goes through ups and downs. The economy goes ups and downs. At times, the company is at the top, the profit is very high. And then suddenly, maybe after 3 years, there's a downturn in the corporate and you suddenly see a loss. The company turns into loss or at a very low level of profit. Maybe the profit is only 10 crores or 20 crores or something. So what happens to the CSR department when the profit comes down or when it becomes a loss? Does the CSR department have to close down? There's an important concept that when there's a downturn in the company, we have to build in sustainability into the CSR department. At present, the CSR department is through a charity model that the company will give 2% of profit. Let's say it's 50 crores it'll give or whatever the amount is. So it's based on a grant and a charity model. But however, the entire same concept can be created through a sustainability. So the sustainability is created through a concept what we call social business. That is not charity, not grant based, but through a concept where you create inherent financial economic sustainability through social business. So you create different type of social work, but through a business model, not through a charity model. They have an inherent financial stability because they are a business model and they are not a charity model. To give an example of this, there's one company called Grameen Danone in Bangladesh. And 50% of the children in Bangladesh have malnourishment. And so Danone is a yogurt and the milk company. They make the yogurt. So inside the yogurt, they had a tie-up with Grameen. The Professor Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, they went to Dhaka and they discussed how do we solve the problem of malnourishment. So in the yogurt, they put multivitamin and micronutrients and all this in the yogurt. And if a child has that yogurt for about 6 months, he has to have it for 6 months, 3 times a week, then his malnourishment problem will be solved. Malnourishment is when your height and the weight are lower, much lower than the average. Your growth factor is not normal. So yogurt is a very tasty way to have it. And this was sold at a very cheap price in the village. It was sold at 3 taka in the villages of Bangladesh. And it was sold at a high price, 12 taka in the city, in the urban areas. So what happened was, in the city, they made a profit from this product. In the village, they had a loss from the product. And if you combine the both, it was a break-even. It was neither profit nor loss. It was a break-even thing. So this problem of malnourishment here was addressed not through charity. They were not giving free yogurt to everybody, and it was addressed through a business model. They took a price at a low level from the poor people, and they took a much higher price at the city level, and the whole business became a sustainable business. So through a business model, they solved the problem. They did not solve it, but they addressed the problem of malnourishment. Those people who took the yogurt, they benefited from this. And so this is one example of a social business. And it's important that CSR departments try to see some kind of innovation in the way they address the thing, rather than having a charity or grant base, to develop some social business kind of thinking behind it, because this develops the sustainability in the concept. For example, in sanitation and toilets, you can have like a pay-per-use concept. In drinking water, you can have also a pay-per-use kind of concept. You provide clean drinking water at a very low price, you provide, and try to develop sustainability into the concept. So this is how, during the downturn of the corporate cycle, when the profits are low, the CSR department can have a continuate approach. So this is a issue which I thought I will put forward. And so in the CSR department, one of the very important quality is that the people working should have a feeling of compassion and of service. These are the two most important qualities which are required. And this has to be inculcated also, and we have to have individuals who have these qualities. The quality of compassion, which is a quality of care and love, and the second is of service, that is to help others and this is at the foundation of the people who work in the CSR department. And so these are some of the issues I thought I would like to share with you, and I wish you all the best in the CSR journey of your lives, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And I think we all agree that we need innovative means to address these issues on CSR. Thank you for sharing your perspective, sir. May I now request Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, Director General and Chief Executive Officer of Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, to give his address, please. Dr. Chatterjee.
Padma Bhushan Srimati Rajshri Birla, Tony, Huzaifa, Mr. Shenoy, my ever cheerful, ever bright colleague, Gayatri Subramaniam, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Let me at the outset thank Samabhavana, IBM, and all of those who have put together this very timely get-together, since, as has already been mentioned by the initial speakers, CSR is now coming into the mainstream of not just corporate thinking, but virtually everyone's thinking. The IICA is an autonomous organization created by government in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. I was very glad that Huzaifa mentioned that there should be perhaps some such body which is a forum for all the debate and all the issues that concern CSR. And I'm happy to share with every one of you that within the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, there is the National Foundation for CSR. This National Foundation, taking off from the piece of legislation in the company's bill, seeks and attempts to provide just that platform where every single issue can be discussed and the way forward found. We have in this National Foundation a two-tier structure. We have about 8 organizations in the steering committee. And at present, we are looking around for 25 individuals in the country who would be part of the advisory group. And I take this opportunity now at this forum, in the presence of all of you, to actually offer and extend to you, Madam Birla, the invitation to be a member of that advisory group. We will be delighted if you can help the national cause in CSR, Madam. Thank you so much. We talked about CSR, and of course, as the day unfolds and in the events that will unfold tomorrow, there will be many definitions, many concepts, many ideas of what CSR should be, ought to be, what is a global module, what is a South Asian model, what is a European model, what is the US vision, and so on and so forth. The short point is that across the world, there are practically no countries that have legislated on CSR. There is a half-hearted legislation that exists in France and a quarter-hearted legislation that exists in Indonesia. But the type of legislation which we will now shortly have in India is, as my minister Sachin Pilot puts it, a leap of faith. It is the very first epoch-making piece of legislation on CSR in human history. Because legislation has not been tested or tried anywhere, we are now in uncharted seas. We are actually going to set the benchmark for the rest of the world. And believe you me, the extent of curiosity that exists from Japan to Hawaii is actually incredible. When I met up with Mr. Michael Porter, Professor Michael Porter in Harvard a few days ago, he literally jumped up from his seat and clasped me, asking, how is it that India has been so courageous in taking such a step? And he asked whether India, with all its multifarious political opinions, diverse viewpoints across the entire nation and our democracy, have you actually been able to get a piece of legislation together? And that exactly is the miracle of India. It is the miracle of our nation. That when it comes to nation building, all of us are one. And across the political spectrum, across the political divide, if there is convergence today on a single issue, let me assure you, I am the battle-scarred veteran of many appearances before many parliamentary committees. On this issue, there is absolutely no division of opinion. That CSR today is at the front of every single political agenda comes across absolutely unequivocally. Now then, if that is so, what shall we do about it? If there is legislation, how shall we implement it? If there is convergence of thought, then what next? And I'm sure that with the next 2 days of deliberations, we will try and chart out a course for ourselves. Just a few words about some of the important things that IICA is trying to look at, and I'll finish with that. If you look at what companies need to get CSR going, what are the felt needs of companies? You will see, of course, a great deal of improvement in the budgeting, in the kind of monies that will come. Something of about 8,500 to 9,000 companies in India will come under the ambit of Section 135. A quick back of the envelope calculation gives us a figure of between 12 to 15,000 crores. We need to make the best use of that money. We need to see that every single pie is utilized effectively. And for that, we need synergies, we need cooperation, we need the holding of hands. We also need, and this is what I'm going to talk about, a few services that perhaps the IICA can provide. One, a single CSR portal, something that anyone across the land can log on to at a moment's notice. Ask the questions they have in their mind, whether you are in Hoshiarpur or Muzaffarpur or anywhere. You should be able to access one single portal, ask questions and get your answers. Look at FAQs. You don't have to go around the world to seek an official answer. Let's find it in that one portal, and we hope to be able to have that in place shortly. We know that corporates largely are not going to do CSR on their own. The fact is, they cannot. Therefore, civil society, therefore the NGOs of India and corporates have to combine, have to work together in order to be able to achieve those deliverables. As Huzaifa rightly said, we are trying to get away from the concept of charity. CSR is not about donating 10 mobile phones. It's not about writing a check and going to sleep. It is about actually seeing that the money that you invest goes into helping the marginalized, the downtrodden, that part of society which really needs help and assistance. And corporates must be able to get that money working right there. I have many queries coming from international companies, and this is what I'm trying to reach out to Tony. Whether it's Mercedes, whether it's Schindler, whether it's Shell, whether it's BMW, whether it's Porsche, all of these companies are walking into my offices and saying, hey, we don't have a registered Indian company, but we understand that the way you guys are going to do business here is actually having CSR in place. What is the CSR in India? How do we go about it? Can you help us with some good NGOs? Where shall we do it? If we have 4 retail outlets in the 4 major metros, where should we do our CSR? We are trying to open in the IICA the first ever global gateway for CSR. And I'm hoping that a truly global company will help us set up that global gateway. If someone were to ask you, just off the cuff, what has corporate India done in the last 3 years on CSR? How much money has corporate India spent on CSR? What's the total list of projects that corporate India has carried out in the last 3 years? Is there anyone in this room who can give me an answer? If any one of you were to attempt to answer that question, you would get the Bharat Ratna. Because, frankly speaking, nobody can answer that question. The reason why they can't answer that question is because there has never been a body that collates that information, that collects definitive agenda. If I were to ask Tony, what has corporate America done for CSR? He too would scratch his head. He too would have no answer. Because research does not exist. If it exists, it's basically about some small portion of the CSR pie. That question can only be answered when there is a definitive database of CSR practices. First national, then international. Where should that database be housed? but of course, in the National Foundation of CSR. And hopefully, we will have that database up and kicking in a very short while for now. So next time, when a member of parliament gets up in one of the houses and says, Mr. Minister, can you tell me, over the last 3 years, what has corporate India done in CSR, in the field of education? There will be an answer. That day will be a great day for our country, because we will then be able to actually say to us and to the rest of the world what exactly we are doing. Is it possible for one corporate? Is it possible for one NGO? Is it possible for one company to address the needs of CSR for the large number of people that are marginalized in this country? And quite obviously, the answer is no. How should companies come together? Perhaps that is the most difficult of all tasks. Do companies come together? Almost invariably, the answer is capital N-O. It doesn't happen. Companies do not work with each other. Why don't they work with each other? Because there is nobody to provide the glue. There is nobody to provide the platform. There's nobody to facilitate that cooperation. Who can do that now? Who but us? And we are therefore trying to develop a concept called the cloud. Just as in the virtual world, we have so much of data stored in the cloud, what we are proposing to do in the IICA is to attract projects from anyone, from civil society, from corporates, from individuals, telling us that here is a wonderful health project in Eastern UP, but it needs 75 crores over the next 3 years. We can put together 20 crores. We need another 55. In the IICA, we will assess that project by a team of professionals, and we will put it up on our cloud. We will put it up on our notice board, and we will invite contributions. We will select an implementing agency agreed to by the principal players in the game, and we will try and see the monitoring and the implementation. That will help to bring a large number of individual initiatives into one focused project. Is there satisfactory research? I have mulled through, gone through, spent sleepless nights looking at virtually every piece of research ever done in India in the last 10 years on CSR. The material out there is so skimpy, so small, so infinitesimally little, that we don't really have a good research base on which to build. But we all know that subjects die because there is no research. A subject is enlivened, it delivers, it moves forward when there is research to back it up. Good, solid research by some of the finest minds in this country. America as a civilization has leap-vaulted to the top nation of the world because its academic institutions prop up that country. Because the verticals of their academic institutions are rich with innovation, are rich with solid research. They pump into the economy of that country. But whereas we may have good research in India on many fields, on CSR, I'm sorry to say, we are eons behind time. And therefore, the IICA will help or will try to attract good funding for research so that we can provide that research base. Finally, in CSR, a large part of it is going to be about the green issues. about sustainable development. And although we may do much in education and in health and in skill development and in livelihoods and in so much else, a large chunk will be about the green issues, about our carbon footprints, about greenhouse gases. And therefore, we do believe that somewhere we will create a center of excellence for sustainability in the IICA, hopefully in the near future, in partnership with TERI. And when we do that, there will be a strong initiative in the area of the green initiatives. With these few words, and thank you for giving me such a patient listening, my sincere apologies for taking up so much of your time. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, sir. And I'm sure under your guidance, all these initiatives will take its shape. May I now request Padma Bhushan, Mrs. Rajshri Birla, Chairperson, FICCI Aditya Birla Center for Excellence, to deliver her keynote address, please.
Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee and distinguished guests. I'm indeed delighted to be here this morning to speak at this global conference on CSR and the India Connect. I must compliment Dr. Chatterjee and Ms. Gayatri Subramaniam for organizing this conference and for having factored practically every facet of CSR. So what I propose to do is to briefly share with you the need for more and more corporations to be engaged in making a difference to the lives of the underprivileged. Secondly, given that most of you here today are familiar with the CSR terrain, I will not dwell on what is CSR, but take this opportunity to highlight one of the CSR approaches that we have pioneered. Let me start with positive frames. Most of us in this room here are Indians, and I hope, like me, we are all proud Indians, proud of the sea change in India's economic position, proud of democracy, proud that we continue to grow at 6%, even as the developed nations, unfortunately, continue to face economic uncertainties. I believe India is very well positioned to go further and become a superpower in the next 10 to 15 years. We have world-class institutions in engineering, basic sciences, medicine, management, and our IT skills are almost as good as the best in the world. And of course, our demographics give us a distinct comparative factor advantage over other countries. These aspects make us proud. That said, the issues which make us dejected also. We are a country conspicuous for its gaping divides, divides between urban and rural areas, divides between states, divides between the backward regions and the rest of the country. On the Human Development Index, we rank at the lower end of 134 out of 182 countries. India is a land of sharp paradoxes and polarities. Nearly 40% of our population is not literate. More than 1/3 of our billion plus what we call our demographic dividend lives on less than $1.25 a day. India is home to the largest concentration of people living in poverty, and this is a pity. In India, between 50 to 70 million citizens do not have a decent roof above the head, which they can call their home. Of this, around 24 million are in the urban areas and the bulk of 46 million in the rural parts of the country. You'll be shocked to learn that India accounts for more than 20% of the global maternal and child deaths. I believe our child mortality rate is 44 stillborn babies per 1,000 births. As distressing as it may seem, more than half of our republic's 200 million children between the age of 6 and 14 do not complete even 8 years of elementary education. Against this backdrop, it is imperative that more and more organizations and individuals engage themselves in the upliftment of these marginalized people. The government is absolutely seized of this issue. Over the last 5 years, the government has pumped nearly 5 lakh crores under various programs. In my view, NREGA itself is a game-changing development, and the UID Aadhaar projects that entails direct transfer of funds from government to the underprivileged helps make an even greater difference. Regardless, our belief is that government alone cannot address this issue. Corporates and other stakeholders who have been given unprecedented opportunities for wealth creation must take commensurate responsibilities for the public good. We live today in an interdependent world which has several pockets of affluence and huge tracts of poverty. It is our responsibility to transform this with a sense of shared values and shared responsibilities. So giving must be a part of our lives. A little aside, but let me share with you that business involvement in reaching out to the marginalized has been part of a long-standing tradition in India. My grandfather-in-law, Mr. Ghanshyam Das Birla, and other visionaries such as Mr. Jamshed Tata, Mr. Ramkrishna Bajaj, to cite a few, deeply influenced by Gandhiji's concept of trusteeship, embedded a social vision into their DNA. This is a part of continuing tradition. It is taking root in several forward-looking business houses and individuals, for example, Mr. Azim Premji. Bain, a global consulting company, in the India Philanthropy Report of 2012, revealed that, and I quote, India's rich increased their contributions from 2.3% of household income in 2010 to 3.1% in 2011. In both our 2012 and 2013 research, the majority of donors indicated that they would likely increase their donations in the years ahead, unquote. And this is good news. We must all look upon CSR as an investment in a healthy and sustainable ecosystem that fosters and promotes growth. Only then can we dream of an India where we have an inclusive society. We believe that improving the conditions of those living at the margin, I repeat, is not only the responsibility of the government. Given the magnitude of the issues and challenges that our country has to grapple with, all progressive corporates must engage in this effort. Apart from the altruistic aspect, our nationalist pride, there are several other value adds that CSR brings to the table. In a way, when a corporation pushes its energies and helps resolve social sector issues, indirectly it stimulates its own business development. There's much to be gained. Today's better educated children constitute tomorrow's thought leaders. Reduced unemployment leads to higher consumption of products. Consumers also gravitate towards organizations that are socially responsible. Progressive corporates increasingly should start looking upon social concerns as part of their responsibility and not as a fringe activity. CSR is a necessary value. We firmly believe that corporate social responsibility is the key to establishing a symbiotic linkage between corporations and the communities in which they operate. In my view, this conference will reinforce all these aspects and accentuate the fact that CSR extends beyond the conscious factor. On our part, we have aligned with FICCI and set up the FICCI Aditya Birla CSR Center for Excellence. Our dream is to make inclusive growth a way of life among corporates. Our articulated vision is to incubate, nurture, and accelerate a paradigm of sustainable and inclusive CSR in India. In doing so, we wish to raise the Human Development Index through poverty alleviation. In fact, along with Dr. Mitra, who was at the help of FICCI then, myself, Dr. Pragya Ram, and Mr. Paresh Tiwari, we had worked out the corporate social responsibility voluntary guidelines and submitted it to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. It was very encouraging to see that almost all of our recommendations were adopted by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. They have been gracious and have acknowledged our center's contribution in the framing of the guidelines. The former guidelines focused only on social responsibility. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs have added value, made it more holistic, and termed it as the National Voluntary Guidelines on Social, Environmental, and Economic Responsibilities of Business. This is indeed a forward step. The FICCI Aditya Birla CSR Center for Excellence would be happy to collaborate with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and help take the CSR mandate ahead. We would be happy. We would be happy to help companies to set up their CSR processes, as shortly CSR spends will become mandatory. I now move to my second point, which relates to our work in the Aditya Birla Group. We work in 3,000 villages, reaching out to 7 million people across geographies. Our focus areas are healthcare, education, sustainable livelihood, infrastructure, and social reform. Our work is carried out under the aegis of Aditya Birla Center for Community Initiatives and Rural Development, which I am privileged to spearhead. We at the center give the strategic oversight, and the execution is done at the village level by our group companies. Our work rests on 4 planks. Number 1, embedding our social vision into the business vision. This has entailed mainstreaming CSR in the business. In other words, in our day-to-day culture, processes, and activities. The second plank is having a razor-sharp strategy for execution, factoring milestones, targets, performance management, and accountability. Our processes are very similar to business processes. So we have a 1-year plan and a 5-year rolling plan. The third plank is getting our work audited by reputed agencies in the CSR domain to assess the impact. All of our companies' annual reports carry a chapter on inclusive growth and sustainable development, which is synergizing growth with responsibilities. We link up with universities, validation agencies, and other reputed organizations who conduct in-depth audits of our project. This works very well. The validation to us is like a lighthouse that beams the signal saying we are moving in the right direction. And fourth, working in tandem with the government agencies and recoursing to their various departmental schemes which foster inclusive growth. This helps us extend our reach. And now let me focus on our pioneering endeavor, which is our biggest break. A decade ago, we evolved the concept of model villages. So, of the 3,000 villages in which we work, we thought of morphing 300 villages into model villages over time. Making of a model village entails ensuring self-reliance in all aspects with education, healthcare, family welfare, infrastructure, agriculture, watershed management, and working towards sustainable livelihood patterns. Fundamentally ensuring that the development reaches a stage wherein village committees take over the complete responsibility of our team and our teams become dispensable. Today, some of our model villages in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka, and Gujarat have won the President's Nirmal Gram Award. This pulling out thousands of people out of their poverty, dignifying their life, is absolutely the greatest break for us. In conclusion, I do most sincerely hope that CSR will soon become a movement in India. On a philosophical note, the real driver of social change is the heart. The heart is the best place rather than the head. For then, you look into your inside, you affirm the belief that you can make a difference, and that is what really matters most. As Gandhiji said, you must be the change you want to see. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your such inspiring and deep thoughts on the subject. Thank you so much. I think due to lack of time, we may handle only 2 questions. So I invite 2 questions from audience, and it can be, please introduce yourself and also just tell to whom the question is directed.
I would address it to IICA. Thank you so much for the inspiring talks. But my question is, why do you mention only marginalized population? We are an NGO. I represent Deepam Education Society for Health. I'm the founder director, Saraswati Shankaran. We have been a mother NGO over 2 decades. It's just not the marginalized population, sir. I'm really concerned about the vulnerable youth in our society. And we have developed a mental vaccination as a thinking tool. And we see results at least among 10% or 20% of the youth. But I don't see CSR mentioning it or supporting it. The youth are at peril. I have seen statistics which are even more frightening than what I see.
Yes, ma'am, the question, please. We are running the
So what can we do for
youth.
the vulnerable youth?
That indeed is a very good question, and I'm sure that we'll be able to take that on board. If you have some concrete ideas and other NGOs and other corporates are willing to take it up, we'll be very happy to foster any initiative that you wish to take in the area. Thank you, ma'am, for your suggestion.
Thank you.
Would a donation to Rotary for polio eradication be considered a CSR activity?
The short answer is no. However, if you were to take a project with Rotary, which would actually help in delivering these vaccinations over a 3-year period, which monitored the vaccinations, which brought the parents into the picture, and then you gave the money to implement that project, ma'am, that would be a proper CSR. Thank you.
Just to add, Rotary has been working very hard on alleviating this polio, and now it's more than 2 years and 4 months since there is no polio case. So I think that is proof enough.
All that needs to be done, ma'am, is if that can be converted into a small project or a program, and you actually monitored the way it was going, it's perfectly fine. One last question, please.
Good morning. My name is Sneha and I'm from Odisha. I just wanted to know how do you differentiate between the peripheral development and CSR activities? Because, I mean, when we talk about the CSR activities and get in touch with some of the corporates, they basically talk about the peripheral development things. And somehow I feel there has to be a distinguished difference between that. I really do not know how it has been defined there at IIC.
Why should there be a difference?
I mean, to my mind, I mean, when we are talking about CSR, it has to reach out to a larger part of society. And whereas the peripheral development is, let's say there is a plant, and then, in that particular periphery of 10, 15 kilometers, some developmental activities has been done. But then somehow
our vision here is that peripheral development, if it is to do with people around the factory who need help and assistance, and in whose lives you are going to make a difference, is perfectly part of CSR.
Yeah,
but it is
is
not restricted to peripheral development. You can do CSR in so many
Yeah, that's what
ways.
actually I'm trying
But
to
yes, peripheral development would be a part of CSR, yes.
Yeah. Because companies like Nalco, if you know.
They do it all the times.
I know that. And they have their own society now, and they're talking about CSR just on peripheral development. And whereas we wanted actually to reach out. Thank you.
In fact, now the company's bill has given up a little special guideline that peripheral activities are more recommended, because you take care of the people around you, around the plant, around the villages. And the company's bill, in fact, recommends that as a guideline, that you should do the peripheral activities. It depends, yeah. That's not all, yeah.
I would like to point out here that questions related to company's bill and what is CSR and what is not CSR can be addressed in the next session. You will be having 1.5 hours to yourself with Dr. Chatterjee, who's going to give, I'm sure will satisfy all your queries, because we are running short of time. So with that, I would request Mr. Shenoy to present a small memento to our dignitaries. Mrs. Rajshri Birla, please. Can we have a huge round of applause, please? Dr. Chatterjee. Dr. Huzafi Karakiwala. Mr. Tony Tinisila. Thank you all. Thank you all. I request Jasmeet to deliver a formal vote of thanks, please.
I would like to call Gayatri back on the dais, please. Our appreciation is left, which I wanted to do it with my own hands, because we've been working together for 3 months already. We've been thick as thieves for 3 months. Good morning to one and all my peers, friends, colleagues, and the august gathering on the dais. Thank you is the word that has been 100 times magnified, as we stand completely gratified before this august gathering. Samabhavana as an NGO has achieved its dream to commence on a journey of ensuring that grassroots civil society organizations such as us are able to connect and you for projectivization, so as to be able to achieve the Millennium Development Goals and the vision of Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Institute of Corporate Affairs, which is shared by all those who are present and not present, because many couldn't come due to distance and financial reasons, as citizens of India. I thank Padma Bhushan Srimati Rajshri Birla for having inaugurated the conference by her gracious presence, along with Dr. Huzafi Karakiwala, and blessing it with their auspicious hands. I take this opportunity to thank IBM, the presenting sponsor, HDFC Life Limited, TCCI, whose support enabled us to put this global conference on CSR, and Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, whose blessings, encouragement, and most important, faith in us to be able to pull this graciously. I have to mention that Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, in a brief meeting, agreed. And thereafter, Ms. Gayatri Subramaniam has handholded us and maneuvered us through all this successfully. And here we are today, just in period of 3 months and an effort of 11 months. Another mention that is very important is of Claudia Brindley Wood, IBM UK, Mr. Tony Anthony Tenisila, Geeta Prasanna, and Tara. These are IBM people who have been working very closely with and running for everything to them, whose faith in us has been one of the stepping stones of today achievement. And of course, HEVOS, who supported us in this process, and Mr. Paul Hansen, who couldn't be here, whose unflinching faith in us stands today justified. I have to thank all our partners, Fatima and Ifat at Google for online promotion, Rusenji from India CSR, Pushpa from GuideStar, NGO outreach partner, Harsha Mukherjee, Ekja, our knowledge partner, and our collaborator partner, FICCI, Aditya Center Birla for excellence. The team Samabhavana who stood behind me, and our president, Mr. D.K. Shenoy, for his never-ending support and the guidance and to help me make our dream come true. Last but never the least, the August gathering that are here in person to bless this process, and many more who could not make, and we know are with us in spirit. I have many names to thank who have supported, guided us on this journey, and to all of them as well as I stand gratified. Thank you, and please do have a fruitful conference that we hope and pray will have a great takeaway value for each one here, and that the true sense as a true CSR citizen of India. Thank you, and have a great conference. And I announce the coffee break now. Thank you.